Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I know some faces in terms of you've taught with us before, or at least we just obviously connected throughout the course of our time together in the district. Some of you are new, at least not to HLPUSD, but new to our summer program. So welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of our math middle school program. We're excited to have everyone here. We definitely increased our enrollment from last year to this year, but we know that's because of the teachers opting in and welcoming and being a part of this. So thank you so much. My name is Gabriel Ward. I'm one of the math hostess in our district, and I will help be managing our program alongside my partner, Christina Skaggs. And so the two of us will be hopefully your point people for the most part, and all that will transpire over the course of our 5 weeks when we start our summer program. So without further ado, let's go ahead and leap into some math. This is an activity that we hope that you will all do with your students at some point during the summer. Let me go ahead and click onto that. And so there are 2 puzzles there, but we're only going to look at the first one. If you, for whatever reason, had taught with us last summer, these are a different puzzle. And so I want you to look at that one on the left. And what we talk about with students is the idea of we are balancing things out. So this comes from Solve Me Mobiles. We'll share the link later. And again, we're hoping that you at some point with your students will be able to do this because I think it's a really helpful routine. And at the same time, it's very engaging for students. So we're asking of you to look at the one on the left. It says puzzle 57 at the top there, or it might look at the number that's 28 in that circle. And the question is, if you would be able to tell us what is the value of those 2 figures. So again, we're looking at the puzzle on the left. And the question to the group is, if you would, again, engage in some math with us, we're here to talk about math, and look and identify if you can figure out what is the value of those 2 figures. Again, on the puzzle on the left, if you just hopped in, we're talking about the hexagon or the rhombus or the green figure there. You're welcome to unmute, or if you feel more comfortable, drop it in the chat. I know it's after school, but we are asking you to partake in some math, being that we're here to support and work with math over the course of our summer.
Could the hexagon be 5 and the diamond 2 and the square 1, obviously?
Thank you, Ms. Lee, for chiming in. Anyone have any alternative responses or want to second that? All right, so I will ask Ms. Lee if you would be so kind as to explain your rationale. So one thing, and we talk a lot about math, is it's not enough just for students, or in this case, teachers, to produce answers or responses, but to back that up with the why. So the question is simply like, how do you know what led you to believe those are the values?
So the entire thing is 28. If the square is 1, we have 6 squares. So 28 minus 6 is 22. So the 4 hexagons plus the diamond should add up to 22. And since we have 4 hexagons, those can only be 5, and the diamond can be 2.
Nice. Thank you for your explanation. And I love it. And here's why I think that, sometimes when we do things like this with students, there'll be varying, not necessarily answers, but I would go to strategies, because when you were explaining how you approach that problem, I thought about when I pulled this problem in today, and I didn't see it like that at all. But instead I was looking at it in terms of separating 2 sides being balanced and identifying the fact that each of those sides, because they're 2, would be the equal of if you separated 28 and a half. So we'd be talking about 14 and 14 on each side. And then similar to what you had done to be able to kind of reason through what are the values of the squares and what must be the values of the other one. So just a great routine, I think, with students engaging. You could go as so simple as just to have kids come up with what they thought about. You could go to the extent of asking them to produce the equation that correlates to their strategy, how they were solving it. Just different things you could do with kids, but this is a great, again, routine that we're hoping that you would do at some point throughout the summer with your students. So thank you for participating in that. Go ahead and get to the next one, which is timesheets, and I'll let Christina explain more about that.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Of course, we have to do the most important thing first, right? Timesheets. We want to know when we're going to get paid and how much we're getting paid and all that good stuff. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. We do have a timesheet for you for today for the 2 hours that will be together. That will be included in the link that we're going to share with you at the end of our presentation today. So you'll be able to download the timesheet. Our payroll schedule for this summer has not yet been released. So usually what happens is we have 3 different pay periods throughout the whole schedule of our 19 days. So we're in contact with Miss Jenny Stopani at the district office now, and she will let us know what dates your timesheets will be due in order for you to get paid on the payroll issue date there. So we, again, don't have those just yet, but as soon as we get those, we will let you know. We do have different people from different places getting paid. So there are a few different timesheets. We'll go over that with you with the link at the end as well. So you'll know exactly which one that you're going to be filling out. So on your timesheet, you will have a place for your name, for your ID number, your school date, the start and end time, the total hours, and then please do not forget to sign your timesheet. That's the biggest mistake that happens when people submit digital timesheets, is that they're not signed by you. So that kind of takes a little bit longer for the process to happen for you to get paid, because it has to go back to you and then back to Jenny and then back to payroll. So please make sure that your signature is on it. The supervisor signature will be coming from us. So don't worry about signing that. We will get that signed for you, and just make sure that you date your timesheet and the dates for the payroll on there as well. So make sure that it's all filled out. That way you'll get paid quickly. If you're looking for your EID number, which is your employee identification number, you can go into ClassLink. You can click on internal use only, and then click on the employee portal information, and you'll just click on my info. Your personal information will come up with your county district or county ID there, and you can put that on the top of your timesheet. So in case you're like me and you forget it all the time, or you haven't written it down in a place that you know it by heart yet, you can always find it within ClassLink there too.
Christina, quick question.
Sure.
Virtual summer school, you guys still sign? Last summer, Joaquin or Francis signed it. Is it you guys or one of them? Just so we know.
So
Yeah, so most of the information is going to be pretty much the same, but for that particular question, I'm almost certain it's going to go directly to Puente Hills, or in this case, the administration at your site. So yes, the same as last year, I assume, unless they instruct you otherwise. Thank you for asking.
yes, and then the school's name that you write down should be the site at which you're teaching. So yes, so whichever high school you're teaching at, that will be your site that you'll be writing down for the school name. Thank you, Mr. Doro Park. I appreciate that. And we do have virtual teachers in here as well. So, and I know that some of you are normally elementary school teachers, and some of you, if we have some popping on, maybe some high school teachers as well. So we're all kind of coming from different areas and doing like one big, PD. So just let us know if you do have any questions and stop us. So our emails are here for you just in case. We do have our summer math lead principals who are kind of overseeing all of our summer programs. So not only is summer math going on, but we also have our CSTEM program for our middle school students. And then the youth cinema project, YCP, is also going on too. So at this time, we're kind of like making sure and double checking our students in areas that they're in the right spot and they're not like dually enrolled in certain courses. So the people who are overseeing all of the summer programs are Miss Lisa Menino and Mr. Sam Yee and Mr. John Kwan. So those are there for you as well. And as far as where you'll be placed, this information is here for you too. We tried to give everyone their first choice. I think it pretty much worked out for everyone. If you see something that's, there's a discrepancy in where you wanted to be placed, please let us know. But for LP, we have Mr. Park teaching algebra enrichment. That 105 right there, that is your section number. So in Aries, you'll see 105 underneath your name. And then Lisbeth Mendoza in 205 teaching Math 8 at Los Altos. Do I need to read all these, or are we pretty much, if you can always go back to the slide and double check, but if you could just do a once over right now and just kind of make sure that you find your name and you're in the right spot, and we didn't place you in calculus or anything, so don't worry, you'll be fine. And go ahead.
I was going to say for our friends that are going to be teaching virtually, I confirmed earlier today with the site administration. So in case you weren't aware, in this case for Mr. Alvarado, Ms. Metz, and Amy, we have, according to what they just informed us today, Ms. Din, Ms. Metz, you'll be teaching algebra enrichment course virtually, and then Mr. Alvarado, you'll be teaching the Math 8 course virtually. So just want to make sure I know that wasn't there, but I did confirm that earlier today.
Perfect. And then the admins, oops, sorry. Yes, Dora, we will change your name. Thank you. Sorry. We apologize for that. Our next part is the admin at each site. So even though we have our admin that are encompassing all summer school, we have admins at each site that you'll be kind of reporting to if there are any you know, emergencies or something that needs to be taken care of on the day of on the spot. So and Mr. Tong. Oh, thank you. Gabe will answer in the chat. All right, perfect. And then, so those will be the admin that you're going to report to at your actual school site. So they will be the ones that will be walking around before school and after school and making sure that kids are safe on campus. And they will be the ones that you'll go to if you need to, you know, chat with anybody as you're working in person. So those are there for you as well.
Christina, this is Josh. I have a question about that.
Sure.
So last year I had an issue with a student, like where I needed it to be dealt with like immediately right then and there. And I called the administration at the school site and they were like, nope, not dealing with that, that you got to call up Gabriel and Christina. And so like, if this is going to be the case, like this has got to be addressed with them. Like, I understand that there's issues that are definitely for you, like we can hold off on, but like a disciplinary issue that has to be dealt with right then and there, like we can't wait for you guys to deal with it. So are they under that assumption? Like, is that has been expressly told to them?
Yes, and we will definitely keep giving that message to them. We've been in, I think, closer contact with these 4 principals than we were year previous, because Gabe and I were like actually on campus when we actually had like 4 people for TOSA, so we were able to like be there, right? But now that we're going to be, well, the first week we'll be at all the campuses kind of roaming, so we'll be around, but after that we'll be remotely working. So yes, we definitely will we've let them know that they'll be in charge of behavior issues. We are in talking with the office managers at each site as well, so that they will have access to Aries also. So if one of your students, you know, it maybe not be an emergency issue, but has to leave early or is checking out, they'll be able to go through the front office and the office manager will be able to put that information into Aries as well. So I think this year it's going to be a little bit more streamlined. I think last year the admin weren't too sure what their role was. So definitely they know that they'll be monitoring during those break times and that they're going to be the first ones who are going to be contacted if it's something that's an emergency at the site. Yeah, I know. I remember Josh last year, those problems and those questions. So, but yes, we'll definitely make sure. And we've talked to Dr. Lynn in order for that to be like a top down thing, that she's letting them know that as well.
I'll be honest, and then one of the things I really want to clarify, and I'm sure most of you that are in the classrooms now, is like, this is summer, and so kiddos, you know, they're going to have potentially more behavior issues, maybe because they're not wanting necessarily to be there, or just maybe because it's summer and it's extra school. So just as for the most part, be as understanding as possible, but also be in close communication with as much people as possible. I know last year there was different situations, and sometimes we need to rope in, whether it be ourselves, whether it be our immediate supervisors, in this case would be the summer school administrators, and sometimes it was the site administrators. There are various issues that will potentially play out. And so I don't think that it's going to be perfect in the sense that nothing will happen. There's always going to be something. We just want to make sure we understand who's the most appropriate person to contact, depending upon the severity of whatever might transpire. But we would really appreciate it if you would rope us all in anything that happens, just so that we're all aware and we can make sure if we need to speak to even a director, to the extent at some instances last year, we're aware and we can share everything that we know that has transpired up to that point.
Yeah, and maybe we can do like a kind of like a tiered handout where we can provide that information, like if this happens, if it's emergency and, you know, fight, whatever, please contact admin on site. And then going down, if it's an Aries issue where the student needs to be transferred or something like that, that's something that, you know, Mr. Ward and I can do for you. But yeah, definitely just include us all, and that way we're all in the loop and we know what's going on too. Great question. Any other questions about the that information there? Admins and things like that? Okay. And we will be providing this PowerPoint for you as well. So you'll have all this information at your fingertips. And then we will share the link to the folder where all the resources are going to be as well. But summer school starts on May 22nd. That first week, we do not go Friday. So it's just Monday through Thursday. And then the second week, because of the holiday, we actually go Tuesday through Friday. So that's our only Friday. Just make sure that you communicate this with parents and students. Either we'll talk about a couple different ways. We have Parent Square access for you. So if you'd like to send some information to your parents that way, or via Canvas, which would be a really great way to send out announcements as well. So, and then June 5th through the 8th, that's a Monday through Thursday. Next week, Monday through Thursday. And then we have a Tuesday through Thursday. So that's kind of weird. There's no Monday or Friday because we needed to do the 19 days. So that is your summer overview schedule. Please make sure that you, I don't think, you know, did we talk about subs, Gabe? In our, yeah. So we do have a sub list for you. If for some reason that you know that you are going to be out for a specific day or you are sick, please let us know as soon as possible. And then you will be in charge of finding a sub for yourself. So we'll show you where that summer sub list is. And then that way you can go ahead and hopefully if it's, you know, you're going to be out for a certain amount of time, then you can plan ahead of time. If not, you'll be making some calls, but please let us know if you know that you're going to be missing a day. And so that way we're kind of in the loop as well. And we can do our best to try and help out and try to figure out how we can get you covered. So
Christina, question. Have you notified the parents about the schedule though? So do we have to do it, or have you already sent out something, but you want us to, you know, remind them?
yeah, I would definitely probably take that last slide and I would post that on my Canvas page on the homepage. Like,
Okay.
like because we have sent out multiple times to multiple
Mhm.
parents the schedule, but yet they're still asking, when does it start? We're like, well, you registered.
Of course.
So, but yeah, definitely I would say post that somewhere and just make sure that they know that they're going to be attending, that the first day is the 22nd, and then, you know, go and kind of go from there.
Okay, thank you.
So our daily schedule for both algebra enrichment and math 8 for teachers is 5 hours per day. That is going to be the 4 hours of instruction with students, but then you do have 1 office hour or even small group time if you choose to pull groups or students choose to stay after. Please make sure that if you are going to be doing this and doing small groups during that time, that you communicate with the parents so that the parents are not waiting and saying, well, my student said we were done at 12, so I'm here at 12, and you told him he has to do some group time. So make sure that they know ahead of time that schedule. I know last year a couple teachers you know, sectioned off a group of students for Monday and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so on and so forth, so that the students knew what their schedule was if you are going to be having that group time. It is optional. You can use that office hour for your planning or for student questions or to meet with parents if needed. You will have a 20-minute break where the site administrators will monitor the students. So this year, the nutrition break for students is 10:30 to 10:50. Since we are on a high school campus, the high schoolers are going to be having their break from 10 o'clock to 10:20. This is especially important so that you know when your students, if they ask you to use the restroom, they will be out at 10 to 10:20 with high schoolers if they're using the restroom during that time. So all high school campuses have the same nutrition break, and then ours is that later time, the 10:30 to 10:50. And if students are arriving early, breakfast is going to be offered prior to start of school, and then lunch will be offered at the high school snack bar windows after school. So they're able to have those 2 options as well. Alrighty, so moving on to attendance. It is a little different than our normal regular year attendance. You are going to still be taking attendance daily. Please make sure to do that first thing in the morning, especially on that first week. That first week, if we're able to figure out who's in class and who's not, then Mr. Ward and I can start calling parents and saying, hey, you didn't show up. Please make sure to show up tomorrow. Otherwise, we're going to be dropping your student from the course. They are allowed to have 2 absences throughout the whole summer program. And then if they let you know, maybe if they're absent, if they're sick, if they have COVID, of course, we take that into consideration. We're not going to drop them if they're absent. If their parent is communicating with us that they're not feeling well, then we do have some lenience in that also. Please make sure to communicate that with us too. If your parent lets you know that a student tested positive for COVID, then we need to make sure that the proper people are notified and that information gets to each school site so that they can post that. So be sure that what I would do is I would click present for all the students and then go back and note who's absent and who was tardy. Because if you just mark absent, tardy, and then click submit, then it's not going to mark all the other students present automatically for you. So you'll get to see how it works as you start to take attendance, but please make sure that everyone has something listed for the first day, whether it's P for present or A for absent and tardy moving forward as well. And then let's see, a couple of things were in the chat. Oh, sorry, Gabe, I think there was one more thing on there that yes, planned absences. The only other thing is we probably won't be adding students to your course at this time because we don't have a wait list. We placed pretty much everyone that we could. And so we're going to be offering, if your class is full, that they go to a different site if they still would like to attend, but we will not be adding anyone the week after. So the first week, once that first week's done, there's no ads and we'll only be dropping people from then on. I think that was the only other thing, except for there are a few students who are participating in speech and debate.
Speech and debate.
Yeah, and so those students will actually be gone for a week. And so hopefully they will let you know who they are once that time gets closer. If not, please let us know. We can check into it. And then we will be sharing the list of students on a spreadsheet that we created for you guys. There are a few students who parents have already contacted us saying, hey, we're going to be out the first week. Could you let us know what our student needs to do? We have shared the online resources with them, so they have access to it already. We'll try to be proactive in that for you too, but we'll let you have access to that spreadsheet, and we have noted which students are on that list. Mr. Dejas?
Yeah, I was just curious. When will we get a chance to see our Canvas course? Like, is that going to be available to us sometime soon, or are we waiting till after the semester is over and then we can start the summer course?
Mr. Ward, do you want to answer that?
So we've already processed, for the most part, everything behind the scenes in Aries, which syncs then with Canvas. As of this morning or yesterday, really, we've been in contact with both our help desk, with Aries help desk, as well as Canvas help desk, because not all Canvas courses, or Aries courses, I should say, have synced over with Canvas. It's our plan that you will have all those available and accessible as early as next week, so that you technically, even though your Canvas course would be unpublished in terms of not being viewable to the public or to students for this matter, you as the teacher could manipulate and do whatever you need to. At some point in our presentation today, we'll go through and model, and so you can see firsthand what it would look like for your course that's auto-generated. For those of you that are maybe unfamiliar with Canvas, you'll also see some of the stuff with regards to our benchmarks that we're going to use during our summer. But by and large, as of today, some of the courses have already begun populating in Canvas. So some of you, if you checked, you would see it's only, I think, as of right now, 2 that have synced. And we're having issues behind the scenes, but we'll hopefully have those resolved so that you can start to see your Canvas courses early as next week. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, and we just had a meeting today too, and I know that they're working on this summer for high school, like rolling over the dates. So I think it's really just, they just need to change that and make sure that that lines up with where we're at now. And then it should populate. And then all you'll need to do is just publish your Canvas course, right? And then the students will be able to see it. So you could wait up until the last, minute, which I wouldn't recommend, but or like over the weekend if you're going to be before summer school starts, and then publish it then. So we'll send out an email though, once we have confirmation that those Canvas courses are populated for you. And Suzanne, I saw your question, vacations excusable. If they communicate with you, I mean, if they're going to be gone for 2 weeks, then I would say, I'm sorry, at this point, you're going to be missing way too much of the program to be able to catch up. So I would say use your discretion. And if you don't want to make that decision, then you can always email us and we can go ahead and make it for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then, yes, there are a few students with IEPs. Those students will be marked in Aries just as in a regular year. As far as special needs go, there might be some accommodations, but we do have our ESY program that some students applied from like Stimson that we redirected to that program. So, just kind of double check with Aries and see that, and then we'll go from there. All right, next slide. So first day is always fun and can be somewhat a bit chaotic. We're trying not to make that the deal, but you will go ahead and check in with the office for your keys, and they will let you know where your classroom is if you need a map. And also you'll be picking up your student workbooks if you haven't already gotten a chance to pick them up. So we've been chatting with a few of the principals and we want to make it as easy as possible. So I think, Gabe, if you want to give information on which school sites are going to be allowing them to come at what time and when to pick up their keys.
So we sent messages out and we're in contact with site administrators of the high schools to be able to kind of figure out when they would prefer. And then the two that we spoke to that we got confirmation from, I should say, was both Wilson High School and La Puente High School. In Wilson's case, they had said if that happens to be your site, right, that you would be able to coordinate with them on that Friday. So just basically on Friday, the last day of school, which in our case is, and I want to say it's the 19th to 20th. What's the exact date? Sorry. Hold please, we'll pull it right now. But that Friday, they essentially said would be perfect because there are not any students the 19th. There are not any students that day, whereas district employees are still expected to be on campus. They said the only thing is they happen until 3:30 p.m. because after 3:30, the person who handles the keys would be leaving for the day. And then they did say that it's possible that you may come during lunch. So ideally, if you're working at Wilson High School this summer, that you'd probably contact and just give them a call over and just make sure that it's not their lunch break. Head on over at some point prior to 3:30 p.m. to obtain your keys. For the La Puente High School, I don't recall, maybe you can help with that one in the SCAGs, but I will say generally most sites prefer one of two options, either the Friday, which is the 19th that we just said, or as early or as late, I should say, as the first day of summer school in the morning prior to the start of school. One thing to keep in mind is the fact that we are using the classrooms that are on the high school campuses. So most likely there are teachers that are teaching there. So it's not possible necessarily for us to obtain keys prior to the other teachers leaving the classrooms for the summer and giving up their keys or turning in their keys, if you will. Do you recall, Ms. Skaggs, what La Puente had said?
I'm sure that was what Mrs. Rojas, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure she said the same thing. I think she said she may be getting back with us, but Mr. Garcia just emailed us also, and he said the same thing. So I'm going to go with Friday at the end of the day. What I would do is just double check, like Gabriel said, and just say, hey, I'm going to come pick up my keys. Will there be somebody there? So that way, you'll be able to go. Most of the offices are opening up at like 7 o'clock in the morning on that first day anyway, which is what Mr. Garcia Rogelio had said also. So as long as you get there at that time, I know I don't like to be rushed, so I would probably do it on Friday, but that's just me. So
Christina?
Yes.
So it was mentioned that we need to coordinate with those people on the site to figure out which time or what time on Friday would work for them. But then who's they? And also, would you happen to have their contact information?
Yeah, so we can actually put the emails of each administrator on the sites, but I think, Gabe, if you go back to the slide that has all the lists, the teacher lists, it says the admins at the top also, Mr. Chen. So you can see the admin name at the top. So for example, La Puente High School is Mrs. Christina Rojas, and then
Nope,
all the other
hold on.
ones are, let's see if we can go back to that. Not that one, there we go.
Yeah,
So-
but when I said they, sorry, I'll make sure I'll be use better terms, just the site. So you don't have to call a specific person in the case of Wilson High School, just call the actual campus itself to ensure that you're not going during their lunch. That's the thing, is that anytime really prior to 3:30, but, and it makes sense. We would hate for someone to be like, hey, I'm on my campus finishing up my regular school year until this time, and then the time where I have a lunch break or what have you happens to coincide with their lunch break. So just to reduce the likelihood of you catching them when they're out of the office, just contact this high school itself and just say, hey, I'm just making sure that it's okay if now that I come over, and as long as they're not on lunch, you should be fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. And on that first day, too, we are going to be hosting an orientation at each of your school sites. So we will start that at 8 o'clock. So that's something that you're going to want to communicate with parents as well. So not only would I post that on Canvas, but I would actually send, and we do have a format for a welcome email to parents. And so on the spreadsheet that we're providing you, all the parent emails are listed. So I would definitely recommend probably sooner than later, only because parents are asking us, who's my teacher? What school site am I at? What room number am I at? That you could go ahead and introduce yourself and give that information to parents. Also, let them know that the orientation will start at 8. So depending on your school site, each school site's a little bit different. You'll be meeting with your students and the person who's doing the orientation for you at 8 o'clock, and then we will let them know about behavior, we'll let them know about attendance, we'll let them know kind of like the general structure of how it's going, and then you'll be there to walk your students to class. Because it is a high school campus, we've had a few parents saying, you know, oh my gosh, my middle school kid's going to be on campus with high schoolers. We're trying our best to make it so that, you know, they don't overlap. They will be going to school at the same time as the high schoolers for the most part. So they will be there with them during that time in the main quad area, but they get released earlier. So they'll be going home first than the high schoolers. So we're trying to, you know, really minimize that time that they're spending together. One really important thing is that if you do not have a student on your Aries roster, please do not let them stay in your class all day with you, okay? We need to make sure that we're counting seats, people in seats, and then making sure that that number matches your Aries roster, especially that first week, because kiddos can get confused and might not be in the correct class or even at the right site, depending on where they were placed. So if you have any questions about rosters, let us know. Mr. Ward, can they see their rosters in Aries now? Are they able to see the students?
I think that teachers might be able to see it. I know that technically, even though we've uploaded all of the students for the most part into Aries, because they haven't been pushed over to being live, I know that some families at least were seeing them and saying questions, why is my student listed as, what was the exact term it was, inactive? And I tried to explain because they haven't been kind of pushed over. So I'm not sure if that has any bearing on what you can't see as the classroom teacher. If anyone maybe not necessarily now, but at some point wouldn't mind checking, we'd appreciate it if you just let us know whether or not you can or cannot view your course.
View the course in Aries.
You can?
Yeah,
Thank you, Ms. Metz.
not a problem.
So then you'll be able to see your students, you'll be able to see your class size, your room number, and your placement as well. So that information is there. It's just not transferring over to Canvas for some of you at this time. First day, a couple of people asked where the orientation is going to be for each high school. So at Workman High School, the orientation is going to be in the den. And then at Wilson High School, Mr. Ward said will be in the gym. And at Los Altos High School, they are having theirs in the Hacienda room, which is right when you first walk in on the left-hand side. And then for La Puente, I believe is also in the gym. We can send out that information to, Mr. Ward, just so that you can send that information to your parents. We'll send that to you guys as well. Any other questions
then-
on the first day?
No, related to the first day, I don't know that we mentioned or if we plan to mention, but we'll say it here, is that we are planning to hold for parents an orientation on Friday, the 19th. So next Friday, 8:30, we've already sent emails out to notify families. Once Parent Square for at least our particular program is up and running, which we're told this week it should be, we're going to send another message via Parent Square out to families for those that maybe don't check their email inbox. But really, we want just parents to understand much of what you might communicate to them. We plan on that parent meeting to kind of let them know the expectations, kind of the overview of what would entail, when they should be able to see or how they should be able to see their students' enrollment in Aries. And then we will also be letting them know that at some point you as a teacher would be reaching out or contacting them. And again, we have different methods for you to be able to do that. But I just want to make sure that you as teachers know that we will be meeting with parents, those that come, and those that don't, just like today's session, they'll be recorded and then delivered out to them. So just want to make sure everyone understands that while yes, the first day is a lot for students, we're going to do our very best to kind of put some nerves aside. I know I had a parent email us and saying they were unsure if they were comfortable with their student being at a high school campus during summer. So we understand that it's a transition, and if you're new to our program, maybe a new transition for yourself as well. But just to make sure we can ease some nerves and just make sure the communication is as open as possible, we will be meeting with parents that Friday prior to the start of summer.
And Mr. Park, that is a really good question. As I'm thinking about it, yes, but you're not going to probably want to send the student up to the admin office without some sort of explanation. So I'm going to say, when you guys make sure that you're in your classrooms, please, as a safety measure, make sure that you have a phone that is working and connected. So that way you're able to contact the either the admin on site, or I would say the office manager if you're in the classroom and you need to, have someone or like security or something come to your classroom. So let's also work on, Gabe, I should be writing this down, creating a kind of like a phone list, if you will. So if you're at Wilson High School, you'll know what the admin's direct extension is and what the office manager's direct extension is. So, and with their names and contacts and all of that. So we'll put that together for you and send that out so that you have that as safety as well. So yeah, I would say if someone's not on your list, then I would say go ahead and make sure that you contact the office, let them know that the student is coming, and then they can sit up in the office. We can be called or emailed, and then we'll figure out what to do with them from there. All right. Any other questions on first day? Awesome. Next one. So jumping into our curriculum, we have a week of inspirational math that we are hoping that you will use. It is kind of something that you can do one per week, and it basically is just inspiring students. It's an activity that comes with a video and then also a practice activity. And it just really helps our students become more confident in math, and it gets them open to, to just speaking and talking. And it's a low floor and high ceiling task. So, anyone can access it, which is really nice. And we will share the link for that with you when we share our resources later, but we wanted to let you know that that is there. And it could be something that you do maybe on Mondays as a, warm up coming in, or Tuesdays, I guess, if we're not having a Monday, or maybe you do it at the end of your week. So we wanted to let you know that is something that's there for you as well. All right, grading. So for these classes, we are going to be providing a grade for the students. It's a really good way for them to keep up with how they're doing, and the parents can see how they're doing. However, this is a non-credit bearing class. So when we use Aries, we just kind of want to make you aware that we have a suggested grade for categories for different weights. So as far as our assignments go, we recommend 30%. And then tests, we'll be talking about that in a moment. As far as we have a pre-test and a post-test that we are having you give our students within Canvas through Mastery Connect. and then participation as well. So we just want to make it known that this is supposed to be an inspiring, enriching program for our students. And so we really don't want any of our students failing. If for some reason you have a student who is, not turning in work and, not applying themselves, please let us know that we can talk to the parent and just say, hey, is everything okay? We want to make sure your student is excelling in this course. But we really want to have a low score threshold of 50% in Aries, so that way we're not giving anybody, zeros and things like that. So if you do have any questions about grading within Aries, we have a link to the Aries tutorials down there at the very bottom. And we're more than happy to help you. Reach out, ask us questions. We can make a quick video for you and send it to you if you're not sure on how to set up your grade books and things like that. But I think for the most part, everyone here has had experience with that. But if you need some help, let us know.
One big thing we want to point out is that we are going to, and we'll model a little bit later as we get into it, having a pre-test and a post-test. And we want to make sure that you do your very best to actually administer those. For the most part, last summer, we had, for the most part, I won't know say a percentage, but a large percentage of our classrooms administer both the pre and post, just so that we can kind of monitor the growth and success of the program. But we'd be able to like to have some longitudinal data so that we can look at, what we are doing, what we are offering, and how it coincides with the success and achievement of students. So we ask that you please do that. In regards to what is going to be provided, this is just kind of in a nutshell. For the most part, you have your teacher planning guide. We're going to share today digitally, or you have access to all of the if you will, TEs, so that the virtual or at least the digital teacher editions for both all of our programs. And then we will also make sure you have access to a print copy. As far as the print copy goes, we were just told today that those are ready and available. We just have to go over to the warehouse and obtain what is the teacher workbooks. The student workbooks will be delivered to sites, but we want to make sure that you either next week, ideally at some point, find a time that you can make your way on over to the district office. You can just shoot us over an email, or if that doesn't work for you, you're really welcome to come if you already know where the curriculum instruction department is, so that you can obtain a copy of the hardcover teacher workbook. Again, you'll get access to the e-version sooner, and as far as today. But as far as the hard copy next week, we're hoping that you could come into the district office curriculum instruction department to obtain one. If you just shoot us over an email, we can give you the directions. But when we send over an email later today with some of the other directions and information, we'll be sure to include that as well if you're unfamiliar with the specific location of our department. As far as supplies, for the most part, you're getting some generic things like markers for kids, some poster paper or large construction paper. You're going to be getting some of the chart paper, if you will. You're going to be getting paper, pencils, paper. You're getting both graph paper and line paper. So there's just a lot of things that you would hopefully have in a general traditional classroom that you will also have. One of the questions that came in, someone had asked with regards to, will we have whiteboards? And we did order sleeves. So there would be plastic sleeves if you're familiar. And just the idea that that would be an excellent space and place for kiddos to be able to solve and tackle problems outside of the consumable student workbook. As far as the student workbooks go, you will have access to all of those. There's, for the most part, separate by unit. And so if you're teaching the algebra enrichment, you're going to have 2 separate workbooks for students. Whereas if you're teaching the Math 8 course, you'll have 3 separate workbooks. And it's just really lumped together by what is the concept or what is the big idea or unit of study that we're doing. And that's kind of how the curriculum's divvied out. As far as the assessments, we alluded to the fact that you will be using a pre and post test. Those will be in Mastery Connect. We've already made all of that for you. We mentioned already there was some glitches or technical issues we're having with the syncing of the Aries and Canvas courses. Once that's finalized, you will start to see not only your Canvas course, but you'll see as well what you need to administer, and we'll model that for you. So if you're saying to yourself, I'm not familiar as much with Canvas yet, or Mastery Connect is very much foreign to me, we're going to walk you through. For the most part, we're doing as much as we can behind the scenes to set you up for success, so that all you really, for the most part, have to do is monitor the administration of it. But essentially, that is the bulk of what is being offered. When we mentioned there's a couple kiddos. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Gex.
I just really quickly wanted to say there's a supply list that we will send to you as well. I know we keep saying we're going to send. We've been on this and trying to get it done, but there's other things that need to happen before we get to it. So we're waiting for other people, but we will let you know what that supply list is. So that way you'll know what to pick up at your school site. That's where all these supplies will be, at your school site. You'll pick up, you know, your ream of paper, you'll pick up your markers. We'll let you know how many markers you're getting, or let you know how many expo markers you're getting, how many pencils and all that good stuff. So we will send that information out to you, but just know that it's going to be at the school site that you're at. So that way, when you pick up your keys, hopefully they'll let you know where it's at so you can pick up your materials as well.
Along those lines, for those of you that are teaching virtually, our understanding is next week they're going to be having a, I guess, a textbook drive or a pickup, if you will. And so students would be able to go into, in this case, Puente Hills, and obtain the student workbooks. So just know that at least in terms of the student workbooks, a little bit different for our virtual folks. But you will still have access, everyone, regardless of the program you're teaching, to the digital components in the event that you prefer to operate there. Which I think there are some benefits to operating through that manner. Go ahead, Mr. Dejas.
Just curious, are we expecting students to be bringing their laptops to the Los Altos campus, or are we going to have access to computer carts on the campus? Just curious if you know ahead of
Yeah,
time.
that's a great question. Yeah, so as far as devices, we in our application to families had asked whether or not they did or did not have currently a district device, but although for the most part, knowing that I don't know what percentage, but by and large, most, if not all of our students already have one. Now, we've had some families contact us since we've notified them. As another reminder, we'll be using your electronic device on a pretty regular basis during our summer program. And some have reached out to notify us to say, you know, my device isn't working, in which case we've contacted them and said, you know, please speak with your current site. So in this case, let's say we have a kiddo over at Mesa Robles that will be attending Wilson High School for summer. We've instructed them to speak with Mesa Robles or their current site so that they could obtain a device that is operational, because we expect them to bring that on a regular basis. Now, related to the high schools, if you're not aware, in our district are kind of a little bit different in the sense that they're not going on the same one-to-one yet that we are for many of our middle and elementary school campuses. Consequently, there will be or should be a lot of carts on campus. Now, me saying that doesn't mean that we're expecting for teachers, in this case, all of us here, or students to be able to utilize those carts. It's very possible that they will be off unavailable, right? But for the most part, the expectation from our program is that students should be bringing their device on a regular basis. We've informed it in the application. We have re-informed it, or at least reiterated again via the reminder or the welcome, if you will, to families. And at our parent orientation we're planning to hold next Friday, we'll reiterate that again. Now, just because we've said that doesn't mean it will always happen. So I'd like us to be mindful and think about some potentially alternatives. It is possible, depending upon the site you are at, that your administrator may allow us to be able to have access to the key. We will speak to administrators regarding that, but I would not lean onto that, which is why we have set the expectation that students would bring their own device on a regular basis.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions about what is being provided prior to us getting into the curriculum itself? Oh, go ahead, Susanna.
Hi, on the grading part, if I can get clarification on what's an assignment and what's classwork, or what's the difference? Does assignments include homework?
Yeah, so an assignment could include homework, although if I were you, I would probably steer away from that as much as possible. I would think more so like if you're doing like a project or something larger, that might be an assignment. Whereas just classwork sometimes is just the simple fact that, are you here? Are you participating? Are you doing some of the stuff with us? And this is just a suggestion. If you feel more like, you know what, I only want to have participation in tests, that's your own discretion and you could do whatever you'd like. By and large, we just want to make sure we're able to capture kind of where students are at and have demonstrated for the course of our summer program. But we don't want it to be all about just, you know, hey, did they do work or not do work? I would like it to have somewhat of ideally a reflection of their, you know, energy and effort output, but also kind of where they're at with understanding of the particular concepts of whatever you're doing, which is why it'd be great to have some checkpoints to see kind of how they are or aren't yet mastering some of the concepts that you'll be covering. Ms. Skaggs, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, maybe if anybody who has previously taught with us, so I know the Hayrens are here, I know Mr. DeHaas is here, if you'd like to kind of share like how you did your grading in the past. I mean, I know I taught math a while ago, but if you want to, anybody want to jump in and kind of share how they laid it all out?
Sure, I don't mind sharing what I've done. So things that I would do daily, I would have an activity, a participation activity every day when they walked in the door. Mine was multiplication of timetable tests, just something that they would have to do. So that way it's a participation activity. Once we do that, that allows me to start off with taking attendance while they're doing multiplication Monday, multiplication Tuesday, multiplication Wednesday. And it's a 2-minute activity for me. I'm just trying to get them to know their facts better. So I have a worksheet that I pass out to them each day. From there, I would then go into instruction, usually a direct instruction for about 45 minutes or so, the length of a normal class period. At that point, we might take a break, might get an opportunity to go use the restroom, come back, try to do something, act like a game of some sort, an activity of some sort. I found that, especially when working with integers, card games, dice games, things that allows them to kind of think of math and use some math fluency, just to kind of break it up. So that way I wasn't doing 3 hours of lecture. And then anything that you do as a participation activity that they're doing in class, give them points for. If it's a quiz, quizzes can fall under assignments. Quizzes can fall under classroom participation, your choice. But then, the assessments that we give, either the pre and post tests would count as tests. If you were to make any of your own tests, I know I did a lot of my HRW back in the day. I'm not sure if that's going to be available to us or not, but if it is, that's another great way to get assessment data. So that's what I try to do with my classes.
Thank you for sharing, Mr. DeHaas, and thank you for asking, Ms. Lee. Yeah, by all means, if there's any other questions you have between now and then, not only do we have ideas, but of course, the room has a wealth of knowledge and experience to offer. And what works for some doesn't always work for all, but it's nice to hear ideas that others might be doing so that we can make it work for us in our classroom. Let's go ahead and see. As far as our curriculum, thank you for kind of at least jumping us off into that conversation. Let me go ahead and jump back into that. And that is that we will be utilizing, if you're unfamiliar with illustrative math, we had used this in years previous. It's one of the most highest rated curriculums that are offered and available out there. But we've only in this year compounding it and making it that much stronger, because in addition to us using illustrative math, or IM, we're also being able to infuse that with Desmos. So Desmos happens to offer a bunch of free activities and things that teachers can do in terms of lessons. And those are probably one of your best digital components that you might use. For those that you will be teaching virtually, we will be signing up everyone, including yourselves. And so that you have, through the course of summer program, at least access to all of what is there normally paid. So if you're not familiar with Desmos, they have free resources, activities that you can do at any point at any time. But they've also just most recently offered and come out with a curriculum that they obviously charge for and have access limited to those people that are purchasing. Now, our district didn't purchase for the purposes of summer. IM is the primary curriculum, but as a really strong supplemental component, Desmos, so that you could essentially say, I'm teaching, for example, let's say it's Unit 4, Lesson 1. Well, Unit 4, Lesson 1 has a correlated lesson in Desmos that you might use. I'm on Unit 4, Lesson 2. There is a correlated Desmos lesson for that. So every single one of the lessons that you'd be using in illustrative math has a very much correlated by standard. Not necessarily is it going to be, oh, it's the same thing digitally that I'm seeing in print. That's not the case, but it's the same concept. And so we're going to share, as we kind of make our way through that, a lot of those things with you. As far as the big ideas for algebra enrichment, those two units are going to be covered. And essentially, you're looking at the rational numbers, by and large, for that big chunk for the Unit 5, for those of you teaching algebra enrichment. And then the second component will be with expressions, equations, and inequalities. And what we did our best to do is identify kind of what are the most essential standards for success in this course. Now, for those of you teaching algebra enrichment, we want to make sure you're aware, not only is it intended for our kiddos who will be incoming 7th graders, that means our current 6th graders, it's also available for our students who maybe have had a challenging time during the regular school year as 7th graders. So if you're teaching algebra enrichment, you very likely have a mix of 7th graders, or at least incoming 7th graders and incoming 8th graders. So again, a mixed bag of both grade levels in that one course, and those will be the 2 components. In the chat, I'm gonna go ahead and place right now a digital or e-version of the very first unit. So I would like for those of you teaching algebra enrichment to go ahead and take a look at that. Go ahead and place that now. Oops, didn't quite copy. Let's try that again. Well, let's try it a 3rd time. Keeps pasting something else that I don't need. There we go. So again, that's the algebra enrichment digital component, at least for the very first unit. For Math 8, we're shifting gears. Again, if you're out teaching algebra enrichment, please open up that link. Take a moment to familiarize yourself with the structure, because we will be digging deeper, but I really want to give you a space and opportunity to kind of look through and see how is it structured, what can you expect in each of the units that you'll be teaching. For Math 8, we're lumped it up into 3 workbooks as opposed to 2. And essentially the first component is geometry based, where we're looking at transformations. And then we're also looking at the Pythagorean theorem. So that first week is really 2 separate components or concepts that are compiled in that first week. But thereafter, you're pretty much moving through the progression of what is all of Unit 3, talking about linear relationships, and then all of Unit 4, where you're talking a lot about more equations. So again, those are the structures. I'm going to go ahead and place now for Math 8 in the chat, the same digital component. Let's see. I see a question popped up, but I will see in a moment. All right, so let's see. Mr. Chen, I want to read it carefully.
I've used Class Dojo when I was doing summer math and it worked really well. I would give points for attendance. I would give points for, participation. And then at the end of each week, I gave like whoever had the highest amount of points was like a $5 Starbucks card or something like that. Yeah. And one year I ended up doing like cartwheels because like 7 kids got 100% on their final test. I'm like, I'll do a cartwheel for however many. I'm sure you guys aren't going to want to do that, but and the kids loved it. But yeah, anything that you think would be helpful would be great. I don't know if anybody else has any effective practices from past summer school, but even big kids like stickers. I know it's weird, but it's true.
So if you didn't already, could you please click on those links that we had placed in the chat? If you're having issues accessing them, please letting us know. But again, you're looking at 2 separate, both algebra enrichment, first unit or first concept that you'll be studying, digital ebook, T-ebook, and then the second one is for Math 8, same. The first, in this case, Unit 1 and Unit 8 comprised into 1, and you're hopefully spending some time looking over at least the structure. We will dig into it further, but I want to make sure everyone feels at least a little comfortable with how it's organized and what is and isn't there. We're going to go ahead and give you about 4 more minutes to look that over. Please let us know if you have questions.
Gabriel, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Alvarado.
So the virtual academy, we're not going to be using Pearson. We're going to be using Desmos.
That is my understanding, because we were told that all the programs, whether it's digital or in person, is utilizing the same curriculum.
Gotcha. And so when will we have access to Desmos so we can start taking a look at it?
So you have access as of now to be able to look at it, to dig as deep into all of the specific modules and lessons that we have. We have to correlate it because we're getting access to be able to, the free version, if you will, only for 30 days. And so I want to make sure we don't give you access prior to when you most need it during the course of summer. In the meantime, again, you can open up Desmos, and we're going to take a look at Desmos in our time together today to kind of see how it plays out. The only difference is you're not going to have access to, for example, the specific lessons themselves. There are some that are available already, and you could just search and you'll see exactly where they're at. But exactly in the full breadth to everything, that won't be until probably that weekend prior to the start of summer.
Gotcha. And so Desmos, we can access the free version right now?
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Mi-
thank you.
Mr. Alvarado, I just wanted to
Yes.
clarify that Desmos is not the main curriculum, though. We're using the illustrative math as the main curriculum. Desmos is combination, but
Gotcha. And so I have access to that as well?
yeah, those were the links that we just posted in the chat for you to check out. And we'll put them, they're also on the slide deck that we're gonna share with you too. So you
Okay,
don't have to worry
I'll
about
look
that.
at the recording because it's, I'm driving, so it knows that I'm
Safety
driving.
first.
so-
Safety first, please don't.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a question, Mr. DeHaas?
Yeah, I noticed the soft or the materials similar to what we've used in previous years prior to COVID. And so we had workbooks for the students, and I would physically check mark their workbook. They'd bring it to me to make sure that they were completing the work. And that was one of the ways I was able to assess their participation in class along with their classwork. They are going to be getting physical handbooks again. So they'll have a Unit 5 book and then the Unit 6 book separate. We'll pass those out, keep those in the classroom for the most part. Try not to let them take them home because they only get lost in that case. But then we can also, because of the computer technology, we can also assign to them through Canvas separate assignments if we have worksheets or things that we create on our own, as opposed to what's necessarily in the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, please feel free, just like you would in the regular school year, to leverage the digital or the curriculum that is, in this case, illustrative math, but infuse it or supplement it, if you will, whatever else you're bringing. My only hope and our intention is that people will utilize the IM curriculum and not say, hey, cool, we got these workbooks, poof, dump it over here. I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do. Not saying that that's what you're saying, but we want to make sure that that is the goal so that we have some fidelity and consistency with all students are getting blank, in this case, illustrative math, which really, again, super high rated for those of you that maybe aren't as familiar with the program. It's very much problem-based, where it's essentially putting the thinking in the ballpark of the students so that students are having to kind of come up with what might I do? And not to say that our current curriculum during the regular school year, whether it's HMH, Go Math Middle School or Go Math Elementary, isn't ideal. Just if you look at the ratings, we're looking at something that is far superior in terms of the quality that it offers for the particular concepts it's trying to deliver.
So does that mean illustrative mathematics is our main anchor, our textbook that we'll be using? Desmo,
Yes.
Open Up, Desmo and Open Up, it's kind of like the Lexia Dreambox.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's clarify that. So Desmos is the supplemental curriculum, which is what I would say is probably what you would leverage digitally. For in terms of the print and the primary curriculum that you're using on a regular basis, when you're not using digital devices, that would be the illustrative math. Now, illustrative math is if the will, the textbook creator or the publisher, but they have partnered up with Open Up Resources, which is this separate nonprofit company, to be able to afford us to have access to all of this stuff digitally, in terms of like the e-version of the PDFs and all that stuff, free. So without the district having to purchase, that's why it maybe can get confusing with what is this Open Up Resources. And so again, Open Up is the company that offers it, but the curriculum itself is IM or illustrative math. So thank you so much for clarifying that.
Are we going to have access to Go Math or not this year?
MyHRW will be available to students, but not in terms of us as courses. Are we
going to be able to assign say a section out of the Go Math 7 book to for them to do like an activity, like an online one of the textbook activities?
No, because there won't be any. So all of our Aries courses that in a normal year sync with any of the platforms, they're not syncing with MyHRW because that's not the curriculum that we are utilizing. What will sync is Mastery Connect, and will sync is Canvas with our Aries courses. As far as Desmos, and we're going to take a look, isn't necessarily something where it's, oh, my course is digitally populated. There's different avenues, and we'll look and we get to that later, how you might choose to provide access to that with your students. But thank you for asking. Yeah, it's a good point. Now, the only program that I'm aware of, I'm trying to think what other software, because during the regular school year, there's a lot of things that we have access to. One of the things, and it's not necessarily here, but it's related, we have Dreambox Math, if those of you aren't as familiar with it. And that is something that you also, while your students could do, you can't assign or view because, again, not synced with those summer rosters.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
so are there any questions up to this point before we, and again, we will dig into the components in terms of the structure of the curriculum, because whether you teach middle school math during the regular school year or whether you teach elementary math, we understand that this is a different curriculum. So we want to make sure everyone feels comfortable navigating and engaging with what is being offered.
Gabriel, what does these things have to do with Master Connect or Mystery Connect?
Yeah, so Mastery Connect is an assessment platform. So Mastery Connect is not our curriculum, but it's a way for you as a teacher to administer checkpoints, for you to be able to administer primarily, at least for the purposes of our program, the pre-test and post-test, so we can be able to monitor progress, but it's essentially just a platform to administer an assessment. That's all Mastery Connect is. And in terms of you having to create anything, like I mentioned, and we will see when we get to that point, but it's already been done for you in terms of the pre-test, post-test. The thing that is optional, if you wanted to maybe use it as an exit ticket, or you wanted to maybe infuse some of your assessments that you plan to use, you could use them in that platform, so that you can digitally monitor the progress of your students. But it's not mandatory. Only for the pre and post test is it an expectation for us.
So the pre-test, post-test is from Mastery Connect, not from IM.
Great question. So what we use is the curriculum itself. So Illustrative Math has their own paper pencil version of the assessments. And what we did is we went ahead, Christina and myself last year, to import those into Mastery Connect. So you are utilizing the assessments themselves created by the publisher in terms of the formatting of the questions. It's just that they're digitally housed in Mastery Connect and administered via Mastery Connect.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So as far as
Gabriel,
technology here, go ahead, I'm
for
sorry.
For that pre and post test, I hope no teacher is hoping to use that as a grade. Maybe the post test, but the pre test would not be fair because we don't know what they're coming to us with.
100%. Yes, thank you. Make sure we clarify that for everybody here. So yes, while the post test might be a great resource for you to incorporate in terms of a measure, one measure of your students, demonstrating whether they are or aren't getting the concepts that you're teaching over the course of summer, the pre-test, which just so make sure everyone's on the same page, is an exact replica of the post-test, is really more so a dipstick. We, not to say are expecting students to struggle, but we are expecting them to not perform as well as they will later on. So please, please do not use the pre-test as one of your grades or measures in terms of grading, because I don't think it would be very fair to students. It's more so for us to be able to say, hey, we know that you may not know, let's just say, how to be able to solve a graph this equation today, but after we spent the next 5 weeks together, we're hoping that you might be able to demonstrate a better understanding on that. So thank you so much for asking that and clarifying that for the group.
Gabriel, can I ask you a real fast question?
Of course, go ahead, Ms. Metz.
Are the textbooks that the students receive the same as the GeoGebra digital version of the student
Thank you.
material? Oh, yes.
So,
okay.
So for those of you that had taught with us before, and it was on the previous slide at least, GeoGebra partnered up with, in this case, IM, to be able to say, we want to have the same thing digitally that's in print. So like if the first question on one of the lessons asks a word problem with a couple sample questions, there's a digital version, and that is with GeoGebra. We're not leveraging as much of that this year because, again, what we have available to us via Desmos. But if you, especially for those of you that are teaching virtual, I would imagine when you're utilizing the core curriculum, in this case, IM, that you'd probably maybe lean a little bit more into GeoGebra. When you're supplementing, that would be more via your Desmos. So if you are maybe saying, hey, I want to dig deeper into GeoGebra, let us know. We're more than happy to meet with you, but we don't want to make sure that that is our primary means of digitally supplementing what is the print version of the curriculum. So thank you for asking, Ms. Metz. So that takes us to here where we'll talk about in terms of the technology. So we do want to make sure that you're utilizing, and we already mentioned Aries, and Aries would be primarily for us taking attendance, for us to be able to kind of keep grades, if you will. You don't have to have everything put in there, but we're hoping that you will utilize what you've compiled over the course of the summer to factor into the end of the year grade. So again, not credit bearing, but there needs to be a grade for each and every one of our students because we want to be able to show how has the student performed. And some sites do take it in consideration as one measure when they're looking at placement for our students, whether they are going into the accelerated or non-accelerated math pathways. As far as our main supplemental curriculum, again, it is Desmos, and we're going to dig a little bit into kind of what that looks like. Let's see. As far as Mastery Connect, that's the thing that ties directly into Canvas. So I am not saying, especially for our teachers that are going to be teaching in person, you do not need to use Canvas to the full extent that you might be doing it you were virtual. But the main idea is that you might have some things there, whether it be maybe some notes you've taken, some additional activity, things you might supplement, just a way for you to be able to give students access to whatever it is you plan to have them do. But for sure, that's going to be the place that they're going to go in to be able to take this pre-test, post-test. Now, again, we mentioned that there were some classrooms or many classrooms having the sync issue. Not all of them are. So what I'm going to go ahead and do right now is model what does that look like for all of our teachers once your classroom Canvas is available and operational, for you to be able to kind of see where you would go and how that would look for your students. So let me go ahead and do that now. Have it open. Stop that share, get to another one. Oh, not the right screen. Let's try again. Share. All right. So what we're looking at is a teacher's Canvas course. This is the Canvas if you were to access this, and this really comes from ClassLink. So if you're saying to yourself, I'm not even sure where you're at, how you got there, essentially you can go to ClassLink, which I think that most of us are familiar with by this point, and you would click on the app that is Canvas. And when you click on that, it should launch something like this. Now, because again, these aren't student facing yet, you could come to your dashboard and you can see it, or you could come to courses. I'm going to go ahead and come to courses right now. And then I'm going to look to see, you know what, I'm looking for my courses now, because these Canvas courses, once they're syncing, aren't necessarily published yet. They're going to appear somewhere in the realm of here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and there really isn't much there yet. Now, the big thing, like we said already, is that you will have to administer in terms of the pre-test, post-test here. So this is the one of the beginning of the, really the first day things that you would do, if not the first day, the second day. And you're going to come over to find in your, again, this is your course navigation, the section that says Mastery Tracker. Now, you don't have to do in terms of setting this up, because we plan to do this, or I did do this. And of course, I didn't check with it. Well, we'll see if it works. Or you know what, maybe I had done it with Miss Lee's class. That probably is what I did. Hold, please. I was like, I know I did this and I was already ready to model. Again, that process that I was just showing is not something that you will need to do, because I don't want you to have to do extra clicks or make more things challenging for you. I want to already have it ready to roll. Not like I modeled, but how it will be. Give me a moment. I'm going to make sure I emulate the proper person.
And while you're doing that, Gabriel, I just posted in the chat that if, I know this is a ton of information, especially if you're not familiar or you haven't really used Canvas, or obviously illustrative math if you haven't taught with us before. So if you want to set up a time to get together with us, either in person or, you know, virtually, we can Zoom with you. Please let us know. Don't hesitate to reach out. You know, no questions are bad questions. We get it. It's a lot, especially at the end of the year. So let us know.
All right. Let's try this again. Thank you for saying that. You know, we were speaking with some of our peers who are helping behind the scenes navigate some of the other summit programs, and some of the programs offering multiple days of training. And that doesn't mean you all have to be experts after our 2-hour time together, but we want to make sure we can consolidate and keep everything as concise as possible, but still make sure you understand that if you have additional questions, please don't wing it. That's not what we want to have happen. We'd want to make sure you feel as comfortable as possible. So let me go ahead and share the proper screen, and then you'll see what it will look like for you. So this is the screen that we looked at. Again, we just opened up Canvas. We went to courses. We found the course that we wanted. In this case, it's a Math 8 course. And if you come over to on your course navigation where you see Mastery Tracker, we've already or will already have done this for you, where you already have your class set up based on the syncing with Aries, and you already have the benchmark pushed out. In this case, the benchmark is the pre-test. Now, right now, there isn't anything there, but when we talk about access for your students, the one only thing you will need to do is to make it viewable to your students. Now, once your course is published, the students can see it. but that doesn't mean that they can necessarily see this assessment or this test. They could come over to assignments, and you will see right over there, this little assignment, the one and only assignment that I have already pushed for this teacher, and that's the assessment. It's the 2023 summer math pretest. The only thing that you need to do is to click this button right here that publishes it, and that makes it available to your students. So again, we will do the work in terms of getting the test syncing with your class. We will go through the work of creating a tracker. So all of these things that maybe seem foreign to you, all you need to do is publish it so that your students have access to it. And if I'm a student, I would just come into the class. It should already appear once I go into ClassLink. And all I have to do is simply click on assignments and click on this itself. Now, if you look at home, if you're familiar with Canvas, you'll know that there's tons of things you could do to plant a landing page where you can make it very inviting. We're not saying you have to do any of those things. If you want to, by all means, make it work for you. But the thing we really want to make sure we at the bare minimum are having students utilize this for access to the pre and post test. If you want to include more things, maybe a contact page, a syllabus, things of what to expect over the course of the summer, some of your maybe rules, all of that stuff, this would be a fantastic place to house all of that. It's just that you don't have to if you prefer not to. Now, if you're teaching our digital class, I would imagine, because you're not in the same classroom, that you'll leverage Canvas a lot more than those teachers that are teaching in person. So that would be a big discrepancy between depending upon the manner in which you're teaching. But by and large, we are expecting at bare minimum that pre and post test there and accessible. All you have to do is publish it and make sure students know where to go to take the test itself. I'm going to stop acting as this user. Go ahead, a question popped up.
Will we be able to get an external link to the curriculum on here, or that's not going to be possible?
Do you mean that like you want e-versions for your students?
Well, if you create an assignment, you could create the external link so that they click on the assignment, or are they just going to illustrative math, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's IM. So if you were using, so we're speaking for those of us that will be teaching virtually, won't have the students directly in front of us, or even for those of you that are in front of students, you could post an assignment. Let's say you were assigning the GeoGebra, the digital component, or you were assigning Desmos, the digital component. You could place those links here in assignments that you generate for students. As far as the curriculum itself, which is print version, you could definitely post the link to the textbooks themselves, but just understanding the way that the textbooks are currently formatted, they're all PDFs, but they're all the entire unit. So in this case, if you're teaching Math 8, you would see all, just like we shared in that link, for those of you that were able to view it, all of Unit 1 and all of Unit 8, or the components that are there. So you would just have to be cautious with what you're sharing. So example, you say, oh, I want you to do lesson 1.1. Well, just know that if you share that same link that I just shared with you, you'd be seeing all of the curriculum. And it isn't necessarily something that students could interact with in terms of, responding or answering on that. If you're trying to leverage the digital side, we would encourage you to either go the route of Desmos or to go the route of GeoGebra if you really wanted to mirror that is what is in the print version of the book. Hopefully that clarifies some things.
So I'm a little confused. The kids that are doing virtual, they're going to have a physical book that they're going to be working out of, or everything is going to be digital?
You as the teacher would decide whether or not you want them to operate digitally or not. For example, all students have access to the print component or the student workbook. Your students, for those of you teaching virtual, will be picking up their textbooks hard copy next week. I imagine you might assign some of the content, like, hey, you're going to do these pages hard copy, and maybe you want them to either upload or take pictures or do whatever they're going to do to show or demonstrate what they've done. Or you may opt to, you know what, for this lesson, we're not going to use the workbook, but instead, or in place of that, we're going to use the digital component. So drastically different for those of you that are teaching virtually versus in person, but by and large, you're afforded the same tools. How you choose to leverage those and implement those with your classes at the discretion of yourself.
But it becomes a little confusing. How am I supposed to collect work if they have a physical book? I was under the impression that the entire Math 8 was going to be virtual.
So your course offering is virtual, or in this case, the structure that we use in our district, and correct me if I'm wrong, is independent studies, where you assign content, students are working on that, whether it be however manner they're going to do that, and then you're continually providing what is the new expectation. But again, go ahead.
So currently we're using Pearson as our digital curriculum, And at the beginning of the school year, we were providing a bunch of different sites where they would go and take care of work, because I mean, they're not going to be coming in daily to turn in work. How are we supposed to collect work virtually from them if we don't have a digital curriculum?
So I'll let Mrs. Metz or anyone that taught virtually, because I can only speak to what I've seen teachers do on a more consistent basis when we were all, for the most part, teaching remote, where a lot of times I saw teachers having students take pictures of their work or scanning their work or any other way to be able to demonstrate what print has been conducted to upload so that teachers could view that. And there's
So
a
we're-
variety
so-
of ways that you might do that. But
So we're
would
gonna
Ms.
go
Metz or
back,
anyone
we're
who
gonna,
taught the program last summer like to share?
I can say last summer, we used a lot of GeoGebra. I created my own content via like Blooket or quizzes from the print and had them do that either independently or during class time. I used Pear Deck, so you can use that on Google Slides, and you can copy and paste from the print to develop your slides that they can do. So you have different choices when it comes to your virtual assignments. Or if you prefer, I mean, the district pays for Pear Deck, so you could also always make it digital via Pear Deck. If you would like, you can also mimic it via GeoGebra. You can develop tests or quizzes through Quizzes, Quizlet, Blooket. Those are the ones that I used last summer a lot when we did Zoom and the independent practice. And that's why I was just making sure that the GeoGebra was mimicked kind of what they were seeing in their in their independent practice booklets. Because if it's the same, you can start an assignment and then create a link to put into your Canvas course, and then the students can click it, they can see it, and then you can then go log in as the educator and kind of see what the students are doing on their independent practice. The one downside to it is that if they close out the screen, all their work goes away from their end. So you can see it on your end as multiple logins, but just be very clear that like, if you decide to only do questions 1 through 5 and you close out, you want to go back, and then do 6 through 10, just be very clear with directions for them is my suggestion, because that was my downfall last year at the very beginning, virtually.
So that's and I guarantee you that was a lot of work for you. That's pretty primitive for us to be rolling out and not having something this year. So that means we're kind of left on our own to deliver the curriculum digitally any way we can, since we don't have a specific digital curriculum. Is that correct, Gabriel?
Mr. Alvarado?
Let's say this, we have different views, but I don't want to make sure we hold everyone else hostage, because by and large, we have a lot of people that it doesn't necessarily pertain to. The 3 of us or the 4 of us, however many of us that it directly pertains to, I think we probably would have a better conversation outside of the group. But we appreciate your concerns and questions.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I
Okay.
think it's something that we need to talk to Mr. Martinez about, as well as what the expectation is for virtual and how that's all going to happen and what it looks like. Because I'm not sure if it's going to be exactly like the independent studies versus a virtual course where I don't know how long.
The reason why I'm asking is, I mean, I'm here at the meeting and I figured I'm part of the meeting, so I thought we would be able to answer those questions. If it was different, we should have had a different training for us doing digital.
We were asked by
Thank you.
Mr. Martinez to have you guys join, but yes, we will definitely address those questions. We can just move forward, and we'll make sure to get back to you, Mr. Alvarado, on that, and the rest of the digital or virtual people as well.
All right, so that leads us into the next, where we're talking about how to get started with Open Up Access. If you don't already have an account, which I imagine most of you don't yet, we're going to ask that you go to this website, which is Open Up Resources, and it's free. You're just basically utilizing your district account to sign in. So let me go ahead and place that in the chat so that you have access to it. Let's see if I can do that. If you're ahead of me, you can Google and just leave an open up resources, but I'm going to place that in the chat as soon as I can highlight that. There we go. Copy link, place it in the chat. Admit we have someone else joining us. Chat
I didn't
disappeared.
recognize the name, so I didn't allow them to come in.
Oh, I'm not sure either. We'll find out. All right, so there's the link. You want to go ahead and open that up. Let me go ahead and do it myself. And then we'll slide it over so that you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. So you're going to select your grade. For those of you that are teaching algebra enrichment, it is the Math 7 or grade 7 curriculum. If you're teaching Math 8, pretty straightforward, it'd be the grade 8 curriculum. So I'm going to go ahead and click that for grade 7. It asks me, who am I? I am a teacher. I'm going to click explore, and then I'm going to enter my district email account or my district email address, and then create a password. Now, if you hadn't already signed in previously, like I have, you're going to create an account. Again, this is just you getting access to the digital curriculum. We already have all of the hard copies in terms of PDFs, but I would say if you wanted to see, and they have some really cool features available, which we'll take a look at, I want to make sure you know that you have access to that once you create that account. Otherwise, you'll be dependent upon us providing those digital PDFs. Not to say that that isn't great, but there's far more offerings once you create that account and go this route. So once you're in, you would have access to the grade 7 or grade 8 math curriculum, and then you would look at our units. And if you recall, if we're talking about algebra enrichment, you're looking at unit 4 and unit 5. If you're talking about math 8, we have a variety. It's unit 5 and 3 and 4, but also 1 and 8. So again, find the unit that you'd want to look at. So let's just say I'm teaching algebra enrichment. I click on unit 4, and here are all the various lessons. So one of the things I really want to fast point out is some of the things that are here that otherwise you wouldn't be able to look at. So let's just say, for example, I wanted to look at the very first lesson. I'm going to scroll down because where it talks about community created resources, you have what I thought was pretty cool, some like already created PowerPoint presentations that you could take if you wanted to manipulate to make it work for you. So again, it's just really the same stuff that you have access in your TE that students have available digitally in print in their student workbook. But if you clicked on that, I'm going to show you what I mean. Dismiss. It has a, what do they have? A Desmos lesson, which this isn't the one that correlates directly to the curriculum, but this is some teachers have compiled things. And then you also have a, do they have a slide deck? Yeah, here's one. I'm going to go ahead and open that. And so this is just something that you could make a copy of. Of course, if you wanted to take things from it, you could cut and paste and you could make your own. But I just think this would be some, for those of you that really prefer to go that route, something that it's streamlined already. For the most part, the heavy lifting is really done for you, if you will, in terms of you creating a presentation that walks students through kind of what they will be doing in the digital component or the print version of the textbook. So I'm going to close that. Again, that is something that you couldn't access outside of you creating an account and going through here. The PDF downloads, that's essentially what we've done. We've taken the student textbook, we've taken the practice problems, all that stuff, and created PDFs. But if you wanted to see by lesson, specifically those things, this would be the place for you to be able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and go back. I'm going to give everyone maybe about 2 minutes to create that account. Again, you open that link that was just dropped there in the chat, and then you're just going through the process. If you've already done it, fantastic. Take a moment to just kind of familiarize yourself with what is there. If you hadn't, we'll give you about another minute and a half to do that.
Gabriel?
Yes, sir.
So you were saying if we never have an account with them, we register for teacher access, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, are there any questions about creating an account through Open Up, or at least accessing some of what that components that are available via the website, otherwise that you couldn't access? All right, so what we have right here is kind of the structure of how this flows. So every single lesson, regardless of whether you're teaching algebra enrichment or math 8, starts oftentimes with a warm up. And so this is a great way to kind of get kids' feet wet in terms of what they'll be learning. We talked a little to earlier, the idea of having access to low floor, high ceiling activities. These really put the learning and the thinking on the shoulders of students. So you have these various different ways that it's going to be presented. The most common are through number talks, where kids are solving things mentally and explaining their process. We have notice and wonder, where there's something that students are looking at, and the simple questions are, what do you notice? What do you wonder? Which gives an excellent platform for kids to offer up what they're seeing. I think a lot of times we have students coming to classrooms thinking that maybe they don't have the opportunity or space to share what they see or how they think about things, because more often than not, they're told, here are the rules that you have to follow. And these provide that space and opportunity for students to offer up what I think prior to being told what to do. This particular example happens to be a notice and wonder. And so students are just asking, which one doesn't belong, And they're asked which one of these 4 images doesn't belong. Now, if you look at the curriculum itself, and we'll take a look at that next, you can see, let's see, hold on. You'll be able to see that what is offered. So in addition to when you look at the teacher workbook, what's student facing, what students see, you're going to get a chance to be able to see about how long should I be spending on this from the teacher side of things. You're looking at possible responses. So they do a really good job of saying, hey, look, yes, we understand that there's always variances and kids are going to say some crazy things, but generally here's some things you can expect for them to say when you offer up this particular activity. These are things they're going to say. And so it gives you that. It tells you the goals overarching of what you're trying to accomplish in that particular lesson. By and large, the way it's structured is we're pretty much saying 2 lessons per day of instruction. Now, obviously, you move at the pace of your students. We're not saying that you have to be on this page at this day, but understanding that overarching is the goal for the most part. 2 lessons accomplished in the 4-hour span that you are with students if you're in person, or you could move slightly different if you're looking at it in terms of how you're working with independent studies or the virtual component with students. But by and large, that's the structure. When you look at next, in addition to the warm-up, you have what is considered to be, this went the wrong way. You have what we consider to be the instructional activity. And this is where it's really, I think, important that you give that space and opportunity for collaboration. I've been in some classrooms last summer where I saw teachers having kids work and tackle some of these problems collectively and collaboratively. Maybe they were working in pairs of 2, maybe they were working in pods of 4, but the tasks or the problems themselves are intended for students to be able to go through necessarily some of these things without us as teachers telling them how to think and what to do. So again, it's very much a problems-based curriculum where it's intended for students to be at the core of the thinking and the problem solving. So you're going to have a variety of tasks depending upon whatever you're looking at. If you look at the curriculum, oh, it's lagging, sorry there. There you go. It's going to be able to go through and tell you about how much time, just like we did for the warm-up, you should be spending approximately on this activity with students. And again, you'll see that pretty consistently. Not only is it telling you what students are seeing, but possible responses that you likely should expect to hear from students. Look, right here, it even tells you, if you look at the top, students working in groups of 2 are shown this diagram, and you have students think about and work through. One of the big things you'll see pretty consistently in the structure is that they always have this. Opportunities for kids to work on things first prior to getting kids to share out or work with others. So we really want to leverage the collaboration, but always the premise is to be able to have kids have that space and opportunity to be able to think or reason through independently or individually prior to working with other people. This is just the continuation. And one of the things I know that one of the years that we were teaching, there were some teachers that were confused, and I really want to make sure we try to address that. When you look at the way that it's kind of laid out, you will see these numbers. So in this case, you see 2.3. If I go to the previous one, you'll see 2.2. That's not to indicate that we've moved on to the next lesson. Those are the steps or the parts, if you will, of this particular lesson. So if I go back one more, we can see that the warm up, I'll go back one more. Usually we'll come to, sorry, here it is. It starts off with 2.1 because all of what I'm showing here is from Unit 5, Lesson 2. So you have 2.1, and as you progress on a little bit further, it goes on to 2.2, and then it progresses on to the next one. So just want to make sure you're on the lookout and seeing that, and not being confused as to when it's pacing itself out, what it is offering us. One of the things that they kind of try to wrap up with almost towards the end is the synthesis, kind of bringing this thinking together. Usually they have a couple questions. Sometimes these are questions you could kind of toss out to the whole group. Maybe this might be something you want kids to try to jot down if you're having them do a journal or a notebook. But essentially it's things to kind of gather an idea. Is the class by and large understanding what we want them to understand? And then we usually wrap up with what they consider, and you can see lesson summary. Those are those questions that we were talking about. And then they wrap up with a cool down. Sometimes people can use these as an exit ticket. You might have them write it on a Post-it. You could have them literally jot it down wherever you want. But essentially, this is a couple questions more often than not to kind of see, did the kids learn what we wanted them to learn throughout the course of this lesson? So that's, for the most part, the structure of the lessons themselves. Are there any questions about the structures? The one thing that is new this year that and I could be wrong, but I don't believe so, because we did some updates to the curriculum in terms of what is the modifications. They always have adjustments. We did infuse them with practice problems. So while you don't see those in your teacher workbook, all of the student workbooks, in addition to having kind of what we just saw from the TE side of things, they're also going to have where it goes through the practice problems, where there's usually 2 pages worth of problems that students can kind of practice whatever particular concept you've worked on throughout the course of that particular lesson. If you're wanting answer keys, which you very well want, those are available digitally through where we just went through IM or Open Up Resources. So again, if you're looking for the answer key in your TE and you're saying, I'm not seeing them, they didn't have a PDF for us to be able to print, to be able to offer you. Again, if you're wanting those answer keys for those practice problems, you would need to move on over to the digital side of things. Any questions with that before we move over to Desmos? All right, so I want to make sure you have an opportunity to engage a bit with Desmos. We're not going to go to the fullest extent. Literally, it could be a PD just on Desmos, but you will have an opportunity to kind of see what does that look like. So I'm going to go ahead and place in the chat an activity link. And that's just it, that you have when you're working with Desmos, different ways or methods of delivering this to students. In some cases, you could have them go to ClassLink, click on that is available to them in ClassLink, and I will show you where you could see that, and then enter the code. What I am doing is trying to place in the chat for you so that everyone can see the link to the same activity. So again, if you wouldn't mind, unless you're driving, if you could click on that link that is placed right there so that you could enter into this activity, which is again a Desmos activity, and you'll start to see kind of what is the student facing perspective. We're not going to spend too much, only a couple of minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and open up my teacher side of things so that I can view your progress. Thank you to the 5 of you that have already entered. If you're having problems accessing, let me know. I know some of you are already familiar with Desmos, which is fantastic. If you aren't, we're hoping that you'll see some of the power that it affords you as a teacher. So I'm gonna go ahead and do, which is the most powerful thing that teachers can do, which is to pause. I'll be honest, when I was playing through and trying to figure out what activity might I have you kind of at least just get a taste of, if you will, I got stuck and I was sitting there trying to click so many times, my cursor fell off the button that said click, and I was really disheartened, and it kept me going back again. This is an extremely engaging platform, far more so than I would say most of the digital components that are out there offer. And one of the cool things that it gives you as the teacher is not only, hey, I'm giving my kids access to a very engaging component of whatever concept we're learning, but I'm also having some power that I may not have in other platforms. So if you're looking at my screen that I'm showing right here, this is just the interface that I see. This is a great opportunity for you to be able to anonymize, to be able to select student work. One of the big things we talk about is we have an idea or a big idea or a goal that we're trying to accomplish, but we don't always want to just be the ones showing students, this is how I do it, this is what I'm thinking. We really want more so the learning and the thinking to come from students. So if you didn't want to put certain students on blast, but I also be able to see what you want to see, you can always anonymize, and now we're all famous mathematicians. We can be able to look at any one of these things and say, you know what, I want all of my class to move right directly away to this slide. So I'm going to go ahead and say pacing. And I'm going to say from this side to this side, oops, restrict to screen 5. So now, if you went back to your screen, everyone is only on that particular thing. So we have a lot more control of what we can have students either see or not see, what students can have access to. We're monitoring the progress of classes, and we're being able to say, you know what, I really like what so-and-so is doing on this one. So I'm going to go back to my summary. And I would say, you know what, I want to be able to highlight what this individual student is saying. And now we say, you know what, I noticed that this student is thinking this, and we could have some conversations about it. So again, Desmos not only provides an engaging platform for your students to access the content and the curriculum, it affords you as the teachers a lot more freedom to be able to kind of map out or progress where you want your students to be. So again, this is what we would encourage you to use digitally. For those of us that are in person with students, you're there, as we mentioned already, Mr. DeHaas did for a good chunk of time, 4 hours. And so you don't want students to be purely working just out of the textbook or the print workbook for the entire time, but instead you'd like for them to be able to do a little bit of that, vary and mix things up, and have some opportunities to engage with this. If you're looking at it through the lens of, hey, I'm teaching digitally, I'm remote, more so the independent studies format, then I would imagine you're probably using the GeoGebra, which again is the access to the same exact questions on the ebook of the print book. This might be the component that you're having students engage with. They don't have to do it while you're doing it with them, but for most of us, it's ideal because then you could be able as a teacher to monitor the progress that you have for your students. Again, it's possible for you to assign it and they work at their own pace, which essentially they are, but there's a lot more power when we're all being able to kind of see and kind of guide and lead the class where we want them to be, depending upon whatever it is you're learning. So thank you for it just playing through. There is a lot more we could check with Desmos, but I do want to make sure you understand that's the goal in terms of us using digitally. The supplemental curriculum would be through here. If you only wanted to keep it, I don't want to change anything beyond just illustrative math or IM. You have GeoGebra, which I'm not digging into. We can definitely meet and talk more about that if you wanted to leverage that with your class. Again, same exact questions as in print. In the TE, if you already looked at it, they talk about where is the alignment. And that's literally in every single one of your units or your TEs that you will see. It tells you, okay, depending upon the lesson that you are teaching, what is a particular correlation or a lesson that matches in Desmos that matches directly to what is IM. I'm going to stop and ask if there are any questions before we move on to what kind of winding down our last thing, because I imagine there might be more questions surrounding and related directly to Desmos. For anyone that has used Desmos, would you mind unmuting and sharing kind of your experience? So for those of us that maybe aren't as familiar yet, how's that gone? How did your students react? What has been your experience?
Gabriel, would you say this is better to allow students to work individually or as a group?
Thank you. So when you are having students work in Desmos, for the most part, I found most classrooms tend to have each student access with their own device. However, there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration within the lesson. So while every single student is still on their own device, there are questions, and depending upon the activity, where we'll have students type up kind of their thinking, and then it will show the thinking of their peers. So it'll say, here what some other kids in your class are thinking, or you answered this, here's what some students are answering. Now, there are different, just like everything, structures. One of the structures, for example, is called polygraph, where kids are automatically paired up. So while every student is on their own device, they're being paired up with another student in the same class. And so they're answering and interacting with it. So while yes, it is intended for each student to be on their own device, there are avenues for collaboration kind of embedded in the platform itself. Go ahead, Mr. House.
I've used it in the past. I've had mixed results. Sometimes I've used the polygraphs where they get to work on things like fractions or and then they have to, or there's a matching game where they have to, they have to predict what the other person chose based on asking questions. So you need to learn to ask good questions that could be responded with a yes or a no kind of thing, which is good. Those are, valuable tools. I've also assigned some of these as kind of like extra credit assignments during like spring break or winter break, so that we would give them a chance to earn some extra credit points. So that's what I found Desmos to be useful for. The ones when you do it in class with the kids, the polygraphs, they tend to have fun with it. They also tend to cheat because they start looking around to see who they're paired up with. So it's really important to use that anonymous button. That way they don't know who they're working with, because if they know exactly who they're working with, they'll start going, yeah, I chose the triangle versus, oh yeah, how many sides does your shape have, kind of thing. So
just like everything, students find ways to work around or make the system work in their favor. But at the same time, I would say I've been in a lot of classrooms, elementary and middle school included, where I've seen the look and the experience on kids' faces. I mean, I'm just saying, I'd like to believe I'm engaging, but at the same time, when I'm working with students, they don't all of a sudden have the, oh, or they want more. But when I do things with Desmos, I tend to see that more often, where kids, if you pause it and they're in the middle of, working with something, they get,
that's the power. That's a powerful, that's a power move right there. You pause in the middle of their activity. And then you realize, I'll let you have it back, but you just realize you continue to work well, you'll continue to get active, to do these kinds of activities. If you misbehave or your behavior is too much, we can always stop this. So.
And then one of the things I've been hearing, at least not from every teacher, but I'd say a theme is that a lot more students prefer to work on a digital thing as opposed to in print. And I think that definitely is in correlation to what transpired when kids were working remotely, at least for over the course of the pandemic. And so again, knowing that, what can we do to be able to meet them more where they might be at? I do think there's a lot of things that are available in print. And I think that you can be extremely successful. But I would say you're really missing, a big side of what, directly kids are more connected and feel more related to if you're not leveraging the digital side of things, which is where the Desmos directly comes into play for those in-classroom teachers. And then for those of you that are working in terms of independent studies or virtually, you're completely leveraging that far more, I would imagine, than you're going to utilize a lot of the print version of the curriculum. All right, we're winding down our time together. With one of the last few things is just some of the supplemental things in addition to the core curriculum, which is IEM, and in addition to the digital component that we'd like for you to leverage, which is Desmos. There's a couple of things that are here available as well. So we talked about Solve Me Mobiles. That was one of the very first activities that when you first came in, for those of you that were here when we first started. And we talked about how that's very engaging, how it gives kids the opportunity to be able to kind of reason through what are the different values of the different shapes. At the core, it's algebra. And again, I found a lot of success at varying grade levels. So I think that might be a great way to either kids come back from break, or maybe a certain day of the week, we can always expect to have Solve Me Mobiles. Whether you're teaching algebra enrichment or math 8, great platform. Slow reveal, that's something that we haven't done, at least in our district, with a lot of the math trainings. But if you aren't aware, at least in the math community, there's a big push towards leveraging a lot more of the data and being able to look at how can we evaluate what information is being presented to me. And so slow reveals are a great place for you to be able to engage with slowly chunking out where things are. I was working with my colleague the other day and we looked at a visual and it just was talking about dots. And then it started to get to the idea of what is each of these dots. So you have just at first you're looking at dots in different spots. And now you're looking at, oh, you know what? This axis is talking about over the course of time. And then this other point is looking at amount of points being scored. And slowly, basically, you're getting chunks of information being revealed to you. So that's what is your slow reveal graphs, where you're looking at something and little by little, you're getting more and more chunks of it. The would you rather, just a great place where you have visuals where kids are looking at two things. Well, how does this compare to that? So look at this example here. It says, would you rather work as a server in restaurant A, or would you rather work as a server in restaurant B? And it tells you the amount of money that they're earning. These are excellent places and spaces for you as a teacher to draw from your students. What are you thinking? What's your reason? Why? It always comes back to the students getting that opportunity to share. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's why I'm thinking it. You want more conversations in the summer, especially than maybe you might even have in the traditional school year. How can we get the kids being more engaged? Because it is the summer. And we know that for some of our friends, their parents opted for them to be there and they really don't want to be. So we really want to make sure we can make the math summer offering as engageable and as entertaining as possible. Not to say that math isn't fun, but how can we illuminate and really draw upon the thinking of students so that we can make it even more than what they are accustomed to in the regular school year. And then that last one is just the math website. So the math website is, and we'll place that too in the chat, a place where you can access tons of resources and other websites that are available there as well. I'll place that in the chat now. So that leads us to our last thing, which is just to kind of wrap up. I don't know if you have any questions potentially about what we talked about. I know we do need to circle back to those of you that are teaching virtually to address your specific concerns. You're welcome to stay for a few minutes if you'd like afterwards, or we'll email everyone anyways and see if there's a better time that works so that we can be able to meet your needs, which again are very much unique. But we want to make sure everyone, regardless of whether the course you're teaching or the manner in which you're delivering instruction, feel supported and feel that you're being set up for success. So I just dropped in the chat the link to the math website. The last thing I do want to put in there, and this is really for everyone here, and that's what you have access available to you. I'm going to go ahead and put this over here, and then I'll put that in the chat as well. So this is a folder, we've created it, and you have a bunch of things that I think are really helpful for you as teachers. You have access already right away without even signing up for IAM to all of the student and teacher workbooks. So let's say if I opened up Math 8, I'm saying, oh, I want to look like what are the students seeing in each one of these workbooks? You have access to that. If you want to go back and say, you know what, I know you gave me access to the very first Unit 1 and Unit 8, but I want to see what comes next. You can open that. Again, these are just PDFs. So again, if you want a specific drill down to the lesson isolation, IM or open up resources would be your better avenue. But this is a way for you to be able to see everything that's been compiled there. Oops, I didn't mean to close that. Let me try this again. And to go back. You have here the presentation. So everything we just went through together, that is available there in the slideshow if we want something. I know someone was asking about dates. Yes, you can absolutely go through what we just shown in the slide deck. There's a slide that highlights the dates, but I might think that this might be a better option, which is just a calendar, and it shows the dates that we're meeting and the dates that we aren't meeting for summer school. Let's see what else is in here. The pacing calendar, this is huge. When you want to kind of see what is the expectation, again, this is in each of your TEs, but I do think it's also helpful to be able to kind of see, maybe you want to just print out this one page so you can kind of know, where should I expect roughly to be on each and any given day? Again, I want to make sure I reiterate, these are suggested pacing guides. The expectation is that you move at the pace of your student. So if you feel like I need to spend a little more time on a particular lesson, please do so. It doesn't mean you have to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I should be here, so we're just going to move there if my class isn't ready. Move at the pace of your students. This is suggested, but a great way for you to kind of hopefully space out and pace out kind of the curriculum. And if you think about, here's our end date, if I'm going to get through the bulk of it, here's what I should probably try to be on approximately at any given time. At the bottom, if you're noticing, hey, this only says algebra enrichment, there's a separate tab for Math 8. It's just it's the TEs for both courses. Trying to think if there's anything else. The sub list, I know some of you communicated to us that you already have a date that you plan to be out. You can see right here where it says summer sub list. And those are all of the individuals that will be subbing over the course of summer. So again, in a normal school year, you would just maybe go through a different route. We know that we have ASOP and how you would identify your absence. For the purposes of summer school, we mentioned and reiterate, please contact us, letting us know that you plan to be out once you obviously know that. And then of course, you're going to work on your own to be able to coordinate a sub. In some instances, I know last year we had a teacher come down with COVID or emergency. Let us know, we'll work with you to be able to make that happen. We don't want to put this all on your shoulders, but we want to make sure we understand what kind of the responsibilities that each of us has. The assessments themselves, they're there. And then some of the procedures in terms of expectations, what we plan to share and communicate with parents on that first day, as well as what we're going to be reiterating with students on that first day. If you want to see kind of what are the policies, what can I expect, that's there too for your students. This folder, I'm going to go ahead and place that here in the chat now, is shared with everyone. Let's make sure I have the share settings structured correctly. It says anyone with a district account. If you're having problems accessing, letting us know. I just don't want to create anyone with an account or anyone with the link, just in case we have students trying to access. Again, that's the folder that we just gave you access to that's there. We'll also, when we send that email out with your timesheets, we'll place that there as well. In fact, the timesheet is already here, right here, the timesheet. It's just that there's a difference for one individual or a couple individuals, depending upon how you were hired. But by and large, this is the timesheet that you would fill out and submit to Jenny's department. Again, if there's any questions, now's the time to ask. We have a few minutes left.